800 million versus the 650 that we currently have. But yet we have an increase in demand that exceeds that increase of mining based on those rather favorable assumptions. All right, what about the industrial side? There are so many applications that are coming on board and continue to grow in silver. Again, I don't have time to go into them all. So I took a 100% deflationist point of view on the silver market. I took three things. I took one, food and energy. Silver doesn't really play into the commodity air, but it may. So I looked at food and water and energy as the three most important, because in a deflation you need to eat, you need to drink water, and you need to move. You need to transport goods and services, and we still get around. So this is based on Jessica Cross here in the UK, and her forecast, right or wrong, going out 10 years, shows that the amount of use for food hygiene is this light blue. And you can see the increase here at the top. It's very substantial. And she also has water purification, which again is extremely high. And these are forecast to be like near 100 million ounces by 2020. That is a large increase. Now, on the energy side, governments around the world are pushing green energy. And the two that they're pushing the hardest are solar and wind power. Solar energy will continue. Now, I just have to be honest, and I'm not a huge solar fan, actually. There are applications of solar that are the most efficient, but having an engineering background before I went on to economics and finance, which is my passion, I'll tell you, what you really want is energy flux density. What you want is the most power per cubic whatever. You want the most power you can get per unit input that you can possibly achieve, and the best way to get that's nuclear, like it or not. Solar doesn't do it. It's very inefficient. Regardless of that, a fact is a fact, and the fact is that governments are pushing solar quite heavily. China is doubling the amount of solar panels they're producing annually, and that's continuing. Jessica forecasts that it's going to ramp up extremely quickly by about 2014, and then it's pretty much going to level off, running at around 130 million ounces annually, just for solar. So using the food water purification alone, it's 100 million ounces. Solar application, 130 million ounces. That's an increase of 230 million ounces. And assuming no increase, none, in consumer electronics, electrical power distribution, maglev trains, textiles, or anything else, and the power distribution, the superconductivity story is far from over. When I made my trip to China and met with CITIC Metals and some of the upper banking echelon, one of the main concerns they had was, one, not to waste anything. They're very interested in recycling of silver. And the second and probably main topic of discussion was superconductivity, because it is without a doubt the most efficient way to move electrical power. Nothing conducts electricity better than silver. Nothing reflects light better than silver. Nothing conducts heat better than silver. Investment demand. Now, Jessica didn't go into this at all, and that's okay. This is the transparent holdings that I have to keep changing every couple of weeks almost, because it keeps increasing, and that's okay with me as a silver investor. This is basically all of your major ETFs, holding companies, and warehouses. And I distinguish them differently for different reasons. But if you look at the Zurich Continental Bank, the COMEX, the TOCOM, Gold Money, Sprott, all of the major Bullion Vault, all the holding companies, and you add them all up, you come up with this number, roughly 700 million ounces of silver. Now, every ounce of silver that I've accounted for there is in the public domain. So everyone can check my work. There's no magic up here. Now, we also learned at the beginning of the lecture that DVD I showed, there was how much silver available above ground. Anybody remember? It's 500 to 700 million ounces. So what have I just shown you? That every commercial bar, every 1,000-ounce bar that's out there for commercial use for industry is being held right now for investment purposes only. That's what I'm showing you. I'm saying that right now, standing here before you, that the silver market has never been this tight in the history of mankind. That's what I'm telling you. So all that commercial silver, it's being held. It's being held as investment. So where's the industrial silver coming from? So recyclers better get busy, I'm telling you. Okay, here's the depositories. Again, this is just to back up what I just said. It's 726 million ounces. You can go through them here. And this is going back just a couple of months. And it's at 680. Now, what's interesting here is if you look at the SLV, what you find is that they were at 328, and they're at 340 here, okay? So 12 million ounces. And if you go back a few months before that, the delta, the change was around 30 million ounces. And what I want to point out here, for those that aren't silver bugs, is that I was asked to come talk to Sprott Asset Management during the implementation of their physical silver trust. And I sat down with Eric and some of his team and explained what I just showed you, basically how tight the silver market was and what kind of difficulty might ensue getting a measly 20 million ounces of silver. And in fact, I don't mind sharing with you, I told him that I felt that if he put $1 billion into the silver market and demanded delivery of 30 days, maybe 60, giving them the benefit of the doubt, that would probably cause a fair increase in the price of metal. I was that confident that the silver supply was as tight as I've just illustrated. Well, it turns out that it did take some time for Sprott to acquire that 20 million ounces of silver, and also the price of silver did go up rather substantially during that time frame. But what I'm more interested in pointing out, especially to my friends in the hedge fund community, is that the SLV didn't seem to have any trouble whatsoever getting an additional 30 million ounces. You never heard a peep out of them having any difficulty. And there's reasons for that, which I don't have time to elaborate on. So the investment demand from 2006. Now, I want to be very clear here that really the investment demand for silver didn't start to accelerate until the advent of the SLV. So I don't want to be bad-mouthing it on one hand and being favorable to it on the other. Overall, generally, I'm favorable to the SLV, and the reason being is that it brings awareness to silver as an investment. It's not my primary silver investment, but if you're a hedge fund manager, you look at it as a secondary way to invest in silver because it's easy to trade. I don't have a huge problem with that. My problem is if you consider it to be your primary silver investment, it is not. I'll go on record saying that. So what's happened from the advent of the SLV and these other ETFs that have tagged along is we've gone up about 300 million ounces in 4 years. That's a 14% compounded growth rate. But it ended in 2010, and it started to level off. It started to accelerate here recently. It's not growing, as I said, in 2010 at that rate. But if we just assume conservatively 100 million ounces being investment demand per year over the next decade, that's extremely conservative. I mean, it is so conservative. The bottom line is, even with that assumption, the bottom line is a mining increase of 20 to 30 million ounces, I explained earlier, per year. The investment demand is 3 times greater. So what I'm really saying is simply this. Without any investment demand, zero, just industrial demand alone, the increase in mining that I explained, you can't keep up with it. Something's got to give. If you add on a conservative amount of investment demand on top of the industrial demand, something's really got to give, because those two factors, supply can't keep up with it. And remember, I assume that supply would compound at a rate that I think it cannot do. So you want to know the punchline, right? The bottom line is I'm more bullish on